When we first caught a view of Antarctica, it was from this Russian cargo jet that took off from Patagonia, and it was pretty terrifying. I thought, oh my God, this place is far more scary and more dangerous than anything I've read about in the books and tales from previous explorers. But I was desperate to go off and explore this place for myself and really see how I, Tom Avery, would get on in this icy environment. My passion for the Antarctic began a long time ago when I was 8 years of age. My mother gave me this Ladybird storybook about the famous British explorer Captain Scott, and his story stirred something very deep inside me. What had persuaded these guys to trek for months on end to reach this seemingly insignificant spot in the middle of Antarctica? The fact that he died on the expedition didn't actually put me off at all, really. I knew that from that day on my life wouldn't be complete, basically until I followed in his footsteps to the South Pole. Things get off to a terrific start. The conditions are ideal as we set off from camp. The surface is hard and flat, there's not a cloud in the sky, and I'm immediately positively zipping along. I make a point of telling myself to remember this moment and just how good it feels.
27 years old today, and it was a birthday to remember. Covered, nearly 24 miles, but there was a bit in the middle during the kiting where I just got thrown all over the place. My legs, my hips, my arms just covered in bruises. And I'm just in absolute bits at the moment.
The expedition was far tougher than anything I'd ever imagined before. You're effectively burning the same amount of calories as you would do for a marathon every single day. The thing that I hadn't really appreciated is the Antarctic landscape. Especially when the weather comes in and a blizzard kicks off, your landscape just disappears at all. You have no views at all, and then it becomes a real battle of the mind. When you think about it, life on a polar ice cap sucks. You know, you are eating this pretty disgusting menu every night, freeze-dried food. You are exhausted, you've got ice building up in your clothes, your tent is being pounded by blizzards every night. And towards the end of the expedition, we completely ran out of toilet paper, so I had to use these snow wedgies instead, which I just wouldn't wish on anyone. For me, one of the hardest parts of the expedition was dealing with the altitude. I hadn't really expected altitude to be such a problem on this expedition. You know, the pole itself is 10,000 feet above sea level, but because of the weather conditions there, it can actually feel more like 15,000 feet, and there's no respite at all. You're slowly climbing, and it really did have a pretty debilitating effect on my body.
Yeah, not a great day today. Came into camp about half an hour after everyone else, just feeling really lethargic and pretty weak, really.
There were a couple of moments where I actually completely collapsed in my tracks. You know, I really did fear that for me, you know, that was going to be the end of my expedition hopes. And with the pole less than 100 miles away, you know, it was a pretty bitter pill to swallow. When we got to the South Pole, it really was, for me, the culmination of 20 years of daydreaming, if you like. We all travelled, you know, for 700 miles, we're in single file, but about 10 yards before we got to the pole, we all sort of gathered round and said, you know, we're going to do this together, we're going to walk to the pole side by side. We cover the final few yards 4 abreast, my heart beating like crazy. We stop a couple of paces short of the pole itself and place our hands around a single ski pole. It's planted in the snow. We hug, laugh, and slap each other on the back. We've made it. When we reached the South Pole, I thought, I've achieved everything I want to in this life. I'd achieved my childhood ambition. I thought, I'm going to go back to the UK, maybe be an accountant again. But, I've tried living a normal life. I've tried having a normal job, and it doesn't work at all. So my attention's quickly turned to the other pole, the North Pole. And it struck me that there's still a lot of controversy around the North Pole. We still don't really know who was the first guy to reach the North Pole. And there was this American guy called Robert Peary who claimed to have discovered the North Pole back in 1909. But since then, a lot of people have questioned whether or not he got there, and a lot of people think he made the whole trip up. No one was going to know for sure until someone tried to recreate Peary's journey, and that's exactly what we tried to do. Right, we're about to set off. Dogs look pretty psyched. I'm excited, everyone else is excited, so let's get going. So I put an expedition together where we were going to follow his route, use the same equipment that he did, and travel the same style that Peary did with these amazing Eskimo dogs and rickety wooden sleds built on the same design that he used, and to see if we could get to the pole in 37 days. Now this is the whole heart of the controversy, because no one's come close to beating that time in a century of polar exploration. So that was the very ambitious plan that we had, and before we set off, all the polar experts basically they wrote off our chances, and quite rightly so. How can these guys with relatively limited experience think that they can beat this record that stood for 100 years? But we were all incredibly motivated. We all had exactly the same goal, and against all the odds, we managed to get to the North Pole less than 5 hours faster than Peary. And whilst you'll never be able to prove 100% he did it, I'm convinced that he did, and I'm convinced that in years to come the history books will rightly so have Peary as the true discoverer of the North Pole. These expeditions are a dangerous game, but in a weird sort of way, that's actually one of the attractions. For me, if there's no risk involved, there's no adventure at all, and life is all about adventures.